Hello dear chess lovers, in this position white had an extra pawn and the knight was attacked. Black just played the move rook e7 and please stop the video and tell me what should white play in this position. We are talking about setting traps to our opponents in today's episode, folks. I noticed as a chess coach over the years that when people see such defensive looking moves, they don't ask themselves whether they are facing a threat right now. They are omitting people's next moves in such cases. And you're a great player if you noticed this knight f3 threat after rook e7. Rook e7 looks like a mere defensive move. It looks like white is in charge. It in fact looks like, hey, the knight is pinned right now, right? So in those moments you stop seeing the opponent's threats. And you're a great player if you come up with the move king f1. Now there's no more knight f3 check threat and white keeps an extra pawn with an advantage. In the actual game, people miss such threats. For example, they make moves like bishop f1 in this position and they allow knight f3 check, discover attack on the rook, and you're losing the game directly. Now, of course, I will rotate the board and give you some practical tips to swindle your opponents. I would say it's worth trying this move rook e7. Objectively, f6 is better than rook e7. Even rook c5 is objectively a better move than rook e7. But in a practical game, I would say you should try this with rook e7 because your opponents, especially lower rated opponents, have hard time perceiving your threats. That's what I mean by raising your chess floor. It means you're at all times vigilant about the opponent's threats, right? Whenever you see a move by the opponent, you should ask yourself, what would they do if I don't make a move right now? That's how you raise your chess floor, folks. I made a couple of courses about this on Chessable. Okay, so that's a great swindling move, rook e7, and if your opponents see it, definitely you can play f6 and nothing much is lost, right? Otherwise, you also, well, create a chance to win the game on the next move, right? By swindling your way into victory. One more position, folks, black to play. Again, white has an extra pawn in this position, and your bishop on d4 is hit. If I give you two choices, do you go c5 or rook d8 in this position? Please choose between those options and also try to be practical. Try to apply today's lesson. What move would create chances to win the game on the next move? And yes, you're a great player if you came up with the move rook d8. Rook d8 looks at first sight looks to be only a defensive move. The rook is defending the bishop which was hanging. In fact, now we are creating a huge threat, and you tell me what that threat is. Yes, if white doesn't make a move or if it doesn't see our threat, then you take on f2 with check, followed by rook takes d1. Correct? Very short calculation. In fact, white needs to see this by playing the move king g2. In the worst case scenario, you can always play the move bishop f6, offer a rook trade, and you play that endgame, or you can try some other moves, maybe improve the king first, and so on, right? And don't forget, guys, I'm talking about those cases where we're objectively worse and we are trying to swindle our ways into victory, right? So I'm specific talking about those cases where you know you're objectively worse and you're creating practical chances. Obviously, it's very good that this bishop f6 move will save your rook, right? After king g2, it's very important that your bishop on d4 won't be trapped because it's right now pinned, for example, right? It's very good to see such cases. At the worst case scenario, I will save my bishop, right? You know that you have this exit option in your pocket and you're playing for more, right? By playing this move, it's a very cunning move. You're actually creating this large threat. And in the actual game, white plays the move c5 because they're only focusing on their own ideas, and this allowed black to have the winning shot, takes and takes on d1. I will just show you an easy example right now. In this position, white just played the move bishop f4 and they want to win a pawn by taking on e5 twice. What should black play in this position, folks? I would say bishop f6 is a very, very nice idea. It looks like, oh, I'm only defending my knight, right? At first sight, this just looks like a mere defensive move. In fact, it creates a huge threat. And you tell me, folks, what that threat is. Obviously, right? This discover check, knight f3 check, followed by bishop takes d4 is a huge threat after the innocent looking move bishop f6. I would say it's more practical than taking white's bad bishop like this, right? This is also an option for black, but I would say practically this should be played for black. I'm defending my knight, having a grip on e5, but most importantly, I'm creating this large threat where your opponents at lower levels have a high chance of missing. In fact, white played the move rook e1 and they allowed knight f3 check followed by bishop takes d4. I will show you another instructive position here, folks. White to play here, black has an extra pawn and they have dominating rooks, right? Just look at the white rooks, terribly passive. They're all tied down in guarding c2. And now this pawn is also under attack, the pawn on f4. So what should white play in this position, folks? Please take your time, generate a couple of options for white, and please choose the one that is more practical, that can set traps to your opponent. First of all, folks, congratulations if you generated these two ideas, rook f1 or rook g1. Rook f1 is, let's say, defending the pawn on f4. We'll come back to it. But rook g1 is objectively a better choice because you want to basically grab on g4, and after knight g6, black is still keeping a clear advantage. With an extra pawn, again, they have beautiful rooks like over there on the c file. Your rook is terribly passive on a2, and black keeps a clear edge. So now we are coming back to this moment, folks. Despite objectively being a worse move, I would say rook f1 is a great practical try. Why? Because while this one looks like a purely defensive move, it in fact creates a huge threat. And you tell me what that threat is. Yes, folks, the threat is, after h5, let's say, the threat is rook f2. This was the main point behind our defensive looking move rook f1. Knight g2 is trapped. You see, that knight has no squares from there. All the squares are taken away. Knight on the rim is dim, and we are winning that knight on the next turn, right? So by playing rook f1, you're creating swindling chances. And in practical games, as I said, people have hard time seeing the threats behind defensive looking moves. Black feels like everything is in charge, everything is in control. I'm hitting this pawn and thus paralyzing the enemy rook. Yeah, psychologically something like this is going on in your opponent's heads at those moments, and you should take advantage of that by intentionally sometimes making those suboptimal moves, especially in worse positions that you know you're worse anyways. So it's all worth taking that extra risk. In this position, if black sees your threat, then black has several ways to claim a clear advantage. For example, rook f3 is a great move, stopping rook f2 and also offering a rook trade. What else? Rook h3 is a great move, anticipating rook f2 will be answered by rook h2, and black is still competitive winning. d4 even in this position. d4 is a good move because it creates this e3 square for the knight, right? After this, knight e3 is on the board. And even rook 3 c4 is a great move, again anticipating rook f2 by hitting the pawn on f4, right? Just like here, even this line, black is so much better. But you see, all these four moves, great looking moves for black, involves black seeing your threat. Black seeing your threat. That's why I created a course about this on Chessable. My opponent's move, identifying threats, mistakes, and misconceptions. That's a fundamental process, folks, thought process. Whenever your opponent makes a move, you have to ask yourself what they would play if you don't play a move right now. That process must be automatized in your head. Otherwise, you can lose any chess position, as exemplified by this line of rook f2. Space repetition, folks. I showed you this position before because it's so instructive. I will show this again to you. In this position, the rook on d5 was attacked. The bishop was also hitting the pawn on f7. Thus, black was forced to play the move rook f5. And now comes my key question. What should white play in this position? What are you seeing? What is that fundamental question you must always ask yourself after the opponent makes a move? Yes, folks, although this looks like a mere defensive move, the rook had to go there to defend against rook f7. In fact, black creates a large threat of d65 creating a double attack on the rook as well as your bishop on c4. Black is on the verge of winning this game on the next turn, and white must see the threat. In the actual game, he didn't see the threat and allowed d5, and black was completely winning, right? So you should see the threat, and then we are talking. There are several different ways for white to play this position. Maybe rook d7 comes to mind, right? There are several ways, but all these moves involve you actively seeking for their next move, okay? This is more difficult for white because this is the only move left for the rook. This really looks like a passive defensive move. They had no choice. Again, white feels that they are in charge. They are controlling this game by attacking that rook, and also at the pawn f7, they are forcing the move rook f5, and that's exactly when blunders happen in chess. And I will leave you guys with this homework position. White has an extra piece right now. The knight was attacked, and black just played the move d5, which defends the knight on e4. And now I want you to tell me whether we are facing a threat right now. Is this only a defensive move with no other functions, or can you see deeper in this position? Please identify that first, and then give me a couple of ideas. What should white play in this position to consolidate the extra piece? Okay, folks, will be a great homework position, but just drills the basic lesson of today. What did we learn today, folks? First of all, we learned that in objectively worse positions, we have the right to play for swindles. We have the right to intentionally make suboptimal moves to trap our opponent. Psychologically, we know that defensive looking moves are hard for our opponents to see our threats. Psychologically, people feel that everything is in control. I am hitting that pawn, they are defending it. I am forcing them to defend that weakness. In those moments, people lower their guards. They don't ask for threats. And we will use this for our benefit, right? We will take this information and we will basically change our decisions in those moments where we are objectively worse, and will intentionally make defensive looking moves to catch our opponents off guard. This holds especially for beginners, novice players, beginners, maybe all the way until 1500 or something. This is a very recursive pattern, very recurrent pattern that I've witnessed as a coach across the years, okay? So please use this information and tell me whether you succeed in your games. You're always welcome to send me your swindles. If you apply this idea to turn the games around, please write to me on YouTube. On this video section, please leave a comment. Chess is a very cruel game. A single slip can cost you all your previous accumulated advantages. Thus, our floor must be very high. Regardless of the enemy's last move, it can look like a retreat, defensive move, escaping move. We have to implement maybe the only algorithm in chess of asking ourselves, what would they play if I don't make a move right now? That's the first question you must ask yourself, because that question will give you so much information that will shape your candidate moves. And if you miss that information, blunders are waiting you in the corner. If you like this video, folks, please give me a like and subscribe. That's very important for me to be able to produce similar content. As you can already see, I am doing these videos to help you improve your chess. And please don't hesitate commenting and discussing your ideas and your observations about this video. Thank you so much, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye bye.